Tracy Sabol tonight on EWTN News Nightly. Strength in numbers. A recent poll is good news for President-elect Donald Trump as he prepares to return to the White House. We have the latest on the presidential transition. Budget battle. Lawmakers release a new government funding bill and not everyone is happy. We're on Capitol Hill. Narrow escape. Pope Francis reveals startling new details on his being the target of several assassination attempts. We have a report from Rome. Plus, a bright idea. What European city fills the night sky with Christmas lights and decorations? These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight, President-elect Donald Trump is just 33 days from moving into the Oval Office, and he is already making headlines on what his policies may look like on several key issues. A recent Trump press conference and postings on social media give Americans a clearer picture, and a new poll showing he has support. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, one of those items, Canada. On social media today, the president-elect Donald Trump addressing America's ally and neighbor.
President-elect Donald Trump posts on Truth Social, "No one can answer why we subsidize Canada to the tune of over $100 million a year. Makes no sense. Many Canadians want Canada to become the 51st state. They would save massively on taxes and military protection. I think it is a great idea. 51st state." The post comes after the premier of Canada's most populous province said Tuesday Trump's plan to impose sweeping 25% tariffs on all Canadian products would be a disaster that would hurt U.S. stock markets.
I just feel we aren't the enemy. The big problem, in my opinion, is China.
Trump is also pushing back against the media. He's suing the Des Moines Register and pollster J. Ann Selzer for defamation. Trump claims coverage of her poll showing Kamala Harris with a surprising lead in Iowa was intended to artificially help Democrats. The Register calls the lawsuit meritless.
I'm doing this not because I want to. I'm doing this because I feel I have an obligation to. We need a great media. We need a fair media.
Meanwhile, good numbers for Trump and not so good for President Joe Biden, according to a Marquette Law School poll. 53% of adults across the country say they approve of the way President-elect Donald Trump handled his job when he was president from 2017 to 2021, adding, "This is Trump's highest approval rating since March." The same poll also revealing only 34% of adults approve of how Joe Biden is handling his job as president, with disapproval at 66%. Today, President Biden and family members attending a private memorial mass at St. Joseph on the Brandywine Roman Catholic Church near his home in Delaware, honoring his first wife and baby daughter, 52 years after they were killed in a car crash.
Now, next month, Trump comes into office with wide support. He, of course, won the popular vote and just clinched the Electoral College vote, and each state will now send its votes to Congress. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, thank you so much, Owen. Also in the news, the president-elect's cabinet nominees. This week, all eyes are on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a Catholic who is Trump's pick to head the Department of Health and Human Services. RFK Jr. arrived in Washington Monday, meeting with senators on Capitol Hill in hopes of getting their support and ultimately vote to confirm his appointment. His views on things from vaccines to processed foods have been met with a wide range of reactions, from skepticism to concern to praise. However, his views on abortion are in the news today. And joining us now is Allison Santafonte with Americans United for Life. Allison, welcome back. Good to see you again. RFK Jr. met with Senator Josh Hawley yesterday. The Missouri senator then took to Twitter saying this. He said he committed to meet to reinstate President Trump's pro-life policies at HHS. That includes reinstating the Mexico City policy and ending taxpayer funding for abortions domestically. That is, Allison, your reaction to that, and to also talk to us more about the Mexico City policy and the impact reinstating it would have on the pro-life movement.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tracy. We are so excited to hear of this news from RFK Jr. You know, I thought back to when he was at the Iowa State Fair and he was still running for president at the time. They asked him where his line on abortion was, and he said 3 months. called abortion horrible. He's called it a tragedy before. I was really impressed. That's way more pro-life than so many Democrats, and definitely more pro-life than the Democrat Party. So now that Trump has him on his team, now that we're looking at him as potentially HHS secretary, which would have big authority over entities like the FDA, I'm encouraged that he is the right person to be able to see major reform, to bring back more pro-life policies that protect women and children. Like you said, getting rid of President Biden's EOs, returning the Mexico City policy, and also reinstating common sense safety measures on the abortion pill that the abortion industry got rid of during COVID, and we are seeing the repercussions of it now. So I'm encouraged that he is the right guy to fight back, and I think he's more pro-life than his team let him, that his team even wanted him to be during him running for president.
Yeah, and we spoke to Senator Hawley today about RFK's stance on mifepristone. Here's what he had to say.
I signaled my view that it was my hope that he would return to what was the rule under President Trump, which is that mifepristone should have in-person dispensing requirements. And he said that he was open to that and he would take the president's direction.
And Allison, your reaction to that?
That's great. For those watching, mifepristone is the abortion pill. It ends the life of a child. It's horrific. It's tragic. And so what Senator Hawley's saying there is that he and RFK Jr. discussed, while this pill is still legal in the United States, at least ensuring that women are safe and have an in-person visit with a doctor and follow-up care, which used to be the standard of care before COVID. During COVID, the abortion industry lobbied the FDA to get rid of those common sense safety regulations called REMS. And then women started getting these pills through the mail. No in-person visit, Tracy, no follow-up care. And we've heard these stories in the news where women have hemorrhaged, have gotten sepsis, have died because no one made sure how they were before taking the pill or after. And so while we as pro-lifers want to support every child, we know they were made on purpose and irreplaceable. Right now, we live in a society with a legal abortion pill. And while that is legal, we should make sure at least, and this is something that RFK Jr. can do and is saying that he will do, we should hold him to that, to reinstate safety measures on that pill to make sure women are truly at least cared for. And we will always be there to accept women after their abortion for healing, which they will need. And we will do everything we can to make sure that they are supported in choosing life. But I'm really encouraged that these two have had this conversation and we have someone who has sought reform before. And I think we should all work and pray to move RFK Jr. even more on life, that he sees the tragedy that it is, that he said it is, and he would do just at least this for now, if not more in the future, to protect women from this pill.
Yeah, not a whole lot of time left, but I want to get to this. Senator Tuberville from Alabama, as you know, also met with RFK Jr., and he had this to say about his meeting. Let's take a listen.
We talked about abortion, and the big thing about abortion is he's telling everybody, he said, listen, whatever President Trump, I'm going to back him 100%.
And Allison, Trump has said that, he's against a nationwide ban, and he wants the states to decide for themselves. Is there a move to change that stance, or, is this the reality that we have?
Yeah. Well, just like with anything, it's really hard to know what someone says versus what they do. But the president has signaled that he will not pursue a federal ban on abortion and that he sent it back to the states, which is what effectively happened because he got those Supreme Court justices in. And so in every state, Americans United for Life is going to seek the most pro-life legislation that we can get. Of course, that's going to look differently in Alabama and Texas versus California or New York, but we need to be creative and wise in encouraging our legislators to stand for life, to stand for things like parental notification, parental consent, and going after big abortion, who gets to make money off of women in very vulnerable situations. And so, RFK Jr. and Trump's appointments, they serve at the pleasure of the president. The president has moved his position on life before. If you remember, he used to say, oh, Planned Parenthood's so good. And then someone got to him, and the next day he said, never mind, someone told me they do abortions and they're bad. These are movable, persuadable people, and we want to continue to see that happen. We saw it happen with Trump in Florida on Amendment 4. So the pro-life movement, keep speaking up, keep advocating for life. They are listening to us, and they will, I pray, respond in this new administration.
All right, Allison, we're going to leave right there. Thank you so much. Always good to be with you.
Thank you.
The text of the 1,500-page bill to fund the government till March 14th is out, but not everyone, including a number of Republicans, are on board. However, Speaker Johnson and others hope the bill, which will keep the current spending levels at about $6.2 trillion, will pass quickly ahead of a Friday government shutdown deadline. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has the latest on that. Eric.
I tell you what, Tracy, a lot of moving parts up here. The continuing resolution includes more than $100 billion for disaster relief funding and some $10 billion in economic assistance for farmers, plus even a provision allowing the DHS to create a program to counter threats from drones. But a number of Republicans are already speaking out against it, including members of the well-known Freedom Caucus who have the votes to kill it.
Has turned into basically an omnibus bill with a Christmas tree with a lot of things on it. I think that we should do something much more trimmed down.
Maryland Congressman Andy Harris is the new chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. The group's former leader, Republican Congressman Bob Good, is leaving the House, but tells me Speaker Johnson's job could be on the line in January.
There's nothing about the past 14 months that would give you the confidence that he has the ability to lead this conference in doing what we need to do next year, which is to reduce government and cut our spending. He's shown no willingness to do that.
Congressman Chip Roy posted on X, quote, "It's the same dang thing every year. Legislate by crisis, legislate by calendar, not legislate because it's the right thing to do." Elon Musk, co-chair of the Department of Government Efficiency, posted, "Ever seen a bigger piece of pork?" But Speaker Johnson says punting difficult spending decisions for the new Congress is the way to go.
This is not an omnibus, okay? This is a small CR that we've had to add things to that were out of our control. These are not man-made disasters. These are things that are that the federal government has an appropriate role to do.
I don't know why we have an appropriations committee if four people are going to get together and write what is not just a simple CR that maintains the status quo. This bill clearly changes the status quo dramatically.
Democrats are praising the bill, saying it secures their priorities.
And this bill has no cuts. Democrats have warned we can't have poison pills, and this bill has no poison pills. And Democrats pushed hard to make sure this agreement included millions for child care, workforce training, job training, funding to rebuild the Key Bridge.
But this is a lesson for Speaker Johnson. I mean, work with us. Let's find solutions. Let's tune out the most extreme voices in your conference, and let's find that consensus that will be necessary to fund government.
Also tucked into this legislation is a nearly 4% pay raise for members of Congress, the first time since 2009. And listen to this. Speaker Johnson may actually try to bring the CR to the floor for a vote tonight or tomorrow. But right now, Speaker Johnson and others are in the process of trying to whip up votes. But we have just heard from President-elect Donald Trump. He put out a statement that we should pass a streamlined spending bill that doesn't give Chuck Schumer and the Democrats everything that they want. He says that without Democratic giveaways, combining an increase in the debt ceiling. So we have to wait and see which direction Speaker Johnson is actually going to take this. The Senate will have to take it up after that and then take it to the president's desk again. Friday is the deadline, so time is of the essence. We also want to let you know that the Senate did pass the National Defense Authorization Act. That's the massive $895 billion defense spending bill. That's what the president wanted to pass as well. But as for the CR, Tracy, it's a wait-and-see game right now.
I guess we will wait and see for sure. Eric, I know you're also following new developments about the ethics report on former Congressman Matt Gaetz. What's new with that?
Well, I've also learned from several sources that the House Ethics Committee has in fact decided, they secretly voted earlier this month to release the scandalous report against the former Congressman Matt Gaetz before the end of this Congress. The report is now expected to be made public after the House's final day of voting this year. Now, as Republicans, lawmakers leave the Washington and head back to their districts, you may recall that the committee voted last month to shelf the report, but Gaetz was then President-elect Donald Trump's choice for Attorney General. Well, since then, he has withdrawn his name, but he is still very active in GOP politics. but the report disclosure will show, which is nearly a 2-year investigation by the committee, allegations of sexual misconduct by the former congressman with underage girls, and claims that he even showed videos on the House floor having sex with these underage girls. It's exceedingly rare for the ethics report to release a report after a member has left Congress, although it has happened just a couple of times, a couple of occasions in the past. Tracy?
All right. Thank you so much, Eric, for that report. Well, the Federal Reserve cuts rates for the third and final time this year, delivering on a promise made last year. The Fed announced a quarter-point cut to its benchmark rate, following a half-a-point rate cut in September. The Fed also signaled that it will reduce rates more slowly next year due to still elevated inflation, which has remained above the Fed's target of 2% in recent months. The cuts come after 2 years of high rates affecting credit cards, mortgages, and auto loans. As residents in Madison, Wisconsin mourn the deaths of those involved in Monday's shooting at a Christian school there, police are attempting to establish a motive.
Identifying a motive is our top priority. But at this time, it appears that the motive was a combination of factors. Again, we cannot share that information at this time because we do not want to jeopardize the investigation and those who are currently cooperating with us.
2 people were killed and several others injured during Monday's shooting at Abundant Life Christian School. Police have searched the home of a 15-year-old girl who they say opened fire and died during the incident. Hundreds of people gathered for a candlelight vigil to mourn the victims. All right, now to a South Pacific Ocean nation where more than a dozen people are dead in Vanuatu after a 7.3 magnitude earthquake. Rescuers dig through the rubble of flattened buildings, searching for survivors. The biggest concern so far is the total destruction of 2 large reservoirs that left the capital with no water. The U.S. State Department says that the embassy staff are safe, but the building is no longer functional. All right, now to the Middle East, where Israel has ordered yet another evacuation of central Gaza ahead of an expected offensive. This comes amid the restart of talks to broker a ceasefire and hostage release deal. A deal on the table would involve a 6-week pause in fighting, along with the release of 30 hostages by Hamas. Israel would also release Palestinian prisoners. Hamas has expressed optimism over the deal. Russian authorities say they have detained a suspect in the killing of a top general near his apartment in Moscow. The Russian FSB says the suspect was born in Uzbekistan but has not released his name. Authorities say the suspect claims to have been recruited by Ukraine. Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was killed by a bomb hidden on an electric scooter parked near his apartment in Moscow. The 54-year-old was in charge of protecting Russia from the enemy's use of chemical or biological weapons. And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including a close call. In his upcoming autobiography, Pope Francis opens up about a failed attempt on his life. We have the details from the book. And in an area of the world marked by war and danger, Christians find a way to celebrate a safe Christmas. We'll take you to the streets of Beirut. Welcome back. 2 assassination attempts were made against Pope Francis when he made a historic visit to northern Iraq back in 2021. The Pope shared the details of these attempts in an excerpt from his autobiography, Hope, published by the Italian press. EWTN Vatican correspondent Colin Flynn has more.
Good evening, Tracy. Pope Francis has revealed in his forthcoming autobiography that he was targeted by suicide bombers during his trip to Iraq in 2021. This shocking news was revealed when excerpts from his book were provided to the press here in Italy, in which the Pope talks about the fact that after he landed in Baghdad, the British intelligence service tipped off Iraqi police and Vatican security that there were 2 separate plots to assassinate him when he visited the city of Mosul. This is the same city where ISIS drove out Christians when they invaded 10 years ago. The Pope writes that one of the attackers was a young woman who had, quote, packed herself with explosives and planned to blow herself up close to the Pope when he was in Mosul. Now, little is known about the details as we only have what the Pope has written, but he also talked about another attempt where a van filled with explosives was intercepted driving at high speed towards Mosul. The Pope said that when he asked Vatican police what had happened to these suicide bombers, he was told, quote, "They are no longer here." He was told that the Iraqi police had intercepted them and blown them up. Pope Francis said that this struck him deeply, and he called this the poisoned fruit of war. It was an incredibly dangerous trip, and one that Pope John Paul II had attempted to make back in 1999. But despite the security threats, Pope Francis completed the entire trip, standing among the ruins and rubble in Mosul, visiting the presidential palace in Baghdad, and traveling to the holy city of Najaf to meet the Muslim Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. And in the book, explaining why he made the trip, despite multiple people telling him not to do so, the Pope said, quote, "I wanted to see it through. I felt I needed to go and visit our grandfather Abraham, the common ancestor of Jews, Christians, and Muslims." And indeed, Tracy, during that trip, the Pope also visited the city of Ur, the birthplace of Abraham. In Rome, Colm Flynn for EWTN News Nightly.
A new documentary airing this month on PBS examines the life of the Catholic priest in Los Angeles and his efforts to evangelize the culture through movies and television.
The thing that was special about Father Bud Kaiser, he didn't judge you. Whether we were religious or Jewish or Catholic or Protestant or whatever, we were all accepted.
Hollywood Priest tells the story of Father Bud Kaiser, a Paulist priest who began a television series in the 1960s and 70s. It features interviews with several well-known actors, and it does not skip over Father Bud's temptations and his struggles. All right, for more, we turn now to Father Tom Gibbons, the producer, writer, and director of Hollywood Priest. Father Tom, good to be with you. So how did you learn about the story of Father Bud Kaiser?
Well, I'm a member of the Paulist Fathers, and, you know, when you grow up or when you're going through formation, you hear a lot about, you know, the people in the religious community who came before you, and Father Bud Kaiser's name always came up. And so I was ordained in 2012 with the Paulist Fathers and was sent to Los Angeles in 2015. And I decided, well, let me do an Ignatian 30-day retreat. And I usually find when it's good to go on retreats to have an extra reading material just to kind of give yourself a break from all the deep prayer and stuff like that. So I brought Father Kaiser's autobiography, and it was really inspiring just to hear his journey in Hollywood and also just his ministry to the poor and across the world.
Yeah, he has a really fascinating story, and a lot of well-known actors are part of the movie too, including Martin Sheen and late Bob Newhart. How were you able to arrange, you know, all those interviews, and also tell us, you know, maybe what struck out the most to you about what they had to say?
Well, it was really funny because, I mean, I grew up watching all these actors, and Martin Sheen had done some voiceover work for me on another project about the story of our founder, Isaac Hecker, a couple of years ago. So I kind of knew how to get in touch with him, and then other people I would just start asking around, and fortunately LA is a big town and it's a small town at the same time, so people at our school knew how to get in contact with people, and I would, you know, just do IMDb Pro and find out, like, oh, okay, this is who you contact. And I was kind of like very shy. I'd be like, hi, you don't know me, but 40 yeyears ago you did a TV show. And they're like, oh yeah, Father Bud, what do you want to talk? Everybody wanted to talk about Father Bud Kaiser. It was really great, you know, and we feature it in the film. Everybody had the exact same story of Father, after they were done filming their episode of Insight, of Father Bud trying to hand them, giving them the check, but not letting go of the check. And what was so funny is every single actor we talked to told that story without us prompting it. So I think that was one of the great things that we walked away from, and just how delightful they all were, and what a great impact Father Bud had on all of their lives, regardless of their faith tradition.
Yeah, can you talk to us about that? I mean, did anybody tell you exactly, you know, the impact that Father Bud had on them? Were there any like significant changes because of him entering their lives?
Well, you know, I think they all had like he had just like what we call like the ministry of presence. And I know that Not all the people who worked with Father Budd were Catholic, and that was one of Father Budd's great gifts, is he made everybody feel welcome. Tim Matheson from West Wing and Animal House fame, talked about how it's like there was just something so welcoming about him, and that how Father Budd kind of stayed in his life throughout. And he even talked to, every once in a while, he said like he would kind of receive one of these God winks from Father Budd when he would be on a set location, which was really neat to hear.
It is really neat to hear. Anything else you'd like to share with our viewers about Father Budd, or where can they get more information, to learn more about the movie?
HollywoodPriest.com is our website. And I think one of the other great things about Father Budd, and that we talk about in this movie, is he also, and later in his life and later in his ministry, formed a really great relationship with Catholic Relief Services. And really, a lot of people kind of come into the film with like, oh, the Hollywood glitz, and isn't that cool and everything. But, even Father Budd realized, there was something, a really core piece of his spirituality was ministering to the poor. And I think that really adds a lot to the story, and really kind of has a great lesson for all of us, no matter where we are in our faith journey.
Absolutely, and it is a great story, and I cannot wait to see it. Father Tom, thank you so much for bringing his story to light. We appreciate it, and God bless you.
God bless you too. Thanks so much, Tracy.
All right, Hollywood Priest airs several times this week on PBS, including tonight, tomorrow, and again on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, Pope Francis is starting a new series of talks. We'll tell you how they're meant to get all of us ready for the upcoming Jubilee year. Plus, after months of fighting, scenes of joy emerge from Lebanon. How Christians were able to find a way to celebrate Christmas. Pope Francis begins a new series of talks on the reasons why Jesus Christ gives us hope.
Insistendo sulla paternità così inedita.
During his weekly talk at the Vatican, the Holy Father started the discussions that coincide with the Jubilee year. And he begins by noting that following our Lord is the goal of our pilgrimage on earth. Pope Francis also says that he'll discuss all the prophecies that pointed to the birth of our Lord. And in Lebanon, the ceasefire agreement between Hezbollah and Israel means citizens are celebrating a safe Christmas. Parades head down the streets of Beirut as Christmas trees and lights decorate the sky. The crowded Christmas market offered gifts and items created by local designers. One Beirut resident says the Lebanese love a joyful atmosphere. Finally, tonight, beautiful lights in winter nights as Amsterdam is fully lit up and decorated for Christmas. Oh, just beautiful Christmas lights right there decorating the capital of Holland. Tourists from all over the world are enjoying the glimmering lights while they bask in the Christmas spirit. Just gorgeous. We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night and God bless.